You're listening to Journey for Truth with internationally known medium, Tai Yi practitioner, and radio host Tami Urbanek.
Hello and welcome to Journey for Truth on Spreaker.com and on YouTube. I am Tami Urbanek. Thank you so much for joining me. On my website, empowermentthroughhealing.org, you can read about different life energy flow Tai Yi treatments. One of those treatments is called circulating circulation, which can help a person improve their circulation as well as reduce water retention, reduce some aches and pains and a little bit of heaviness. That treatment has been very successful in different people and their feedback that they have offered me after receiving that treatment. Again, is titled Circulating Circulation. Another website to go to is jonalifeinstitute.com. This website, you can sign up for the free newsletter, which is packed with information, articles, just free information for you to utilize in your own individual healing. That newsletter is only sent out once a month, so not annoying like some businesses send out every day or once a week. jonalifeinstitute.com is the website, and just right there, sign up for the free newsletter. My guest this week is Luanne Hunt. Luanne is a Grammy Award-winning indie artist, and she really came to understand her dreams, manifest her dreams, after she began moving beyond unconscious and false beliefs. She's going to share with us today exactly how she did that. Luanne, welcome.
Hi, so good to be here.
It's great to have you. Now, you struggled to make it in the music industry for 20 years. What exactly was that struggle?
Well, at the beginning, it was more the struggle of just trying to figure out how the whole industry worked. And, you know, back in those days, people had to go out and try to get a record label to get behind them and help them, you know, get the notoriety or whatever they were looking for, putting their records on the charts and the whole bit, you know. So, I mean, there was that aspect of it at the beginning. But I think for me, the bigger challenge, and this was the case for a very long time, was just, you know, overcoming my own doubts about myself and what I was capable of. I wanted to sing when I was a kid. I knew that was part of my calling, and unfortunately, I wasn't one of those children that just displayed this awesome musical talent. So when I would sing, I would be made fun of, and if I expressed any desire to want to do this seriously in my life, people were very naysaying about it. So those messages stick with you.
Right. Did that come from your family or people outside your family?
A little of both. I remember trying to get in the choir. I think it was in 3rd or 4th grade, and I auditioned, and the teacher said that I couldn't sing very well, and she wasn't going to let me in the choir. And then, of course, some of it did come from family. And
so they just thought it wasn't something realistic for you to aspire to, something to do, a little hobby in your bedroom by yourself?
I guess so. I grew up on the East Coast, and I think it was a small town, and it had that small town mentality, and most people didn't leave the area. And to have a big dream like that seems strange to a lot of people. And especially probably when they were listening to me try to sing. And like I said, I didn't really have that natural ability. It didn't seem that way anyway. So I'm sure it just, to everybody that I ever said anything to, it probably sounded outlandish. That being the case, I think it's important to encourage children when they bring up their heart's desires and not tell them, oh, you're crazy or whatever. So
I agree completely. I was very fortunate in growing up in a family that was very encouraging, and I try to always do that to my own daughter, who's now 22 years old, and encourage her to find her passion, build her career, and wherever she wants to do it. And I agree, it's very important that we encourage our kids to discover their individuality, find out who they are. And I find that there are many families who there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of maintaining that status quo, and you need to be normal, you need to do what everyone else is doing, go to college, get your solid career, and have your solid paychecks, you can have your solid retirement, and which is fine, but that doesn't necessarily lead to a life of passion or a life of joy. But what led you to realize that singing was your passion?
I always knew it. I used to sing a lot in my bedroom. I was like a lot of kids, you know, had the hairbrush as a microphone,
yes,
and
I
singing in the
remember.
mirror, dreaming. So I always knew that it was something that I wanted to do, and it was important to me. And I would put on little shows with the neighborhood kids all the time. And so I think the whole music business, entertainment, that thing was just always in my blood. And I didn't know how that was all going to manifest in the future, but I guess I just knew that I knew it was my path. So it wasn't hard to get on it once I realized that I was capable of doing everything that I had really wanted to do. So
I know I did go to YouTube and I looked up a couple of videos that you are in, or that you created rather, for your music, and you have a very beautiful voice. So
Thank you.
I'm surprised that your choir teacher stated that you couldn't sing very well.
I know, it's so funny because even when I started out seriously singing back in the 80s, and I made some little home recordings, I listen to that stuff and I think, well, my tone really has always been my tone. It's never changed that dramatically. Granted, my timing and my pitch
Right.
and all those things, the technical aspects of my voice have improved tremendously, but the tone was always there. So yeah, I sometimes think about that, like, what were they hearing that sounded so bad?
Yes, exactly. Now, you had briefly mentioned that you took on some unconscious beliefs from your family, from the people outside your family, that led you to doubt whether this was something suitable for you to follow or whether you were even good enough. What were some other false beliefs that you discovered along the way, specifically during your 20-year struggle, as you put it? What were some specific false beliefs that you thought, that's just not going to work for me anymore?
It's very interesting, and I've said this to my husband quite a bit. I don't think I've ever doubted my own ability to do whatever I decided to do at the very highest level I could do it. There's just no doubt in my own ability. But what I've always had trouble with was believing that other people were going to recognize it.
Mm.
And so I think that's just been a real block for me, or it was for a long time, because I thought, I can make the greatest music in the world and it might not even matter. People won't even acknowledge it. Because it seemed to be that was the pattern throughout my life. So I had to really work at breaking that belief.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in my work, I always teach people to search for where beliefs originate from, because you need to go back to that place of origin to really resolve it at its core, rather than trying to fix the symptoms and put out little fires here and there, but get to that core issue.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, or did you, through your own work of healing your unconscious false beliefs, were you able to recognize, okay, this belief originated at this point in my childhood, or through that adult, or through that other person, or what they said? Or was it more of kind of generally addressing the beliefs?
Some of the false beliefs, as I began to uncover them, I was able to pinpoint pretty much where they did start. But then there's other ones that I'm not really sure where they came from, but at the end of the day, I say it really doesn't matter, because the whole goal is to get rid of them,
Right.
to change them. And so once you do that, it just changes your whole outward circumstance. It's funny how that works. It truly is like an inside job, like they say. So.
I agree. Sometimes an unconscious belief will develop in such a way that we just don't have a memory of it, not a conscious memory anyway, because it could have been something that you were hearing in your infancy. It could have,
Right.
you just don't have memory of that, but you recognize it's still something that needs to be addressed. And I think that it does come down to, as you were stating, making different choices, choosing to empower something other than the false belief over and over and over again is what essentially begins to help that belief dissipate, because a belief only remains when you feed it, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, what were some steps that you took in your own personal healing work? What were some steps that you took to overcome those beliefs? I mean, did you specifically journal on them, or did you identify them as a phrase and then counter them? How did you go about it?
Well, at the beginning of the journey where I realized that I needed to change all this stuff, the first it was like a lot of prayer and meditation, and that just sort of helped me get centered and prepared to go along this path and start to uncover what was blocking the things that I wanted. So that sort of laid the groundwork. And then it seemed funny because when as soon as I started to really focus on what I wanted to accomplish as far as eradicating these beliefs, it's like help was sent to me. I would come across books, or I'd hear something on the internet, or it was coming from everywhere. It's like it was falling out of the sky, helping me to just get the information I was looking for. And I think one of the first books that came to me was Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Mm-hmm. And even though I wasn't trying to work on my money stuff or whatever at the time, which that book has a lot to do with that, but it's also about growing rich in other areas of your life. That book really opened my eyes to the subconscious. And how the subconscious is always dictating everything that's going on with us. I didn't know that before. Mm-hmm. So once I was able to see that, it helped. And it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. And that's where I need to do the work. And then it was just like baby steps. And I don't know if you know who Dr. Joe Vitale is, but...
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, he's a wonderful self-help guru, if you will, and he's written tons of books, and I came across his materials, and geez, I learned so much from that guy. It's unbelievable.
It is interesting when a person begins uncovering their subconscious and you know what's really going on in there that leads a person to make a choice that is either very helpful. It was a great choice. It had a great outcome, or not so helpful. You know, it didn't have the outcome what the person wanted. I think when we think about the subconscious, we tend to think kind of maybe leading us in the wrong direction, which certainly happens a lot. And then there can also be positive things going on, or unconscious positive statements that are kind of filtered through and then come into our conscious mind to assist us. And I love what you just said. You said that when you made that commitment to really begin healing and uncovering these unconscious beliefs and addressing them, that help just started falling out of the sky. That it's just wherever you look, there was that assistance. And I find that so often that when a person embarks on a journey of change, it's like everything kind of moves along with it. And it's a beautiful experience. I'm really happy to hear that. Now, along the way, sometimes we hit these roadblocks, or sometimes we think we're going, and then boom, oh my God, what just happened? We hit this brick wall. Did that happen to you?
Oh, many times. And it seemed like it was the most intense when one of my beliefs that I was so tied to was challenged in a big way. And I had to really look at it and say, what in the heck is going on inside of myself? Because it's, even though we have beliefs that don't always serve us, there's some comfort in them on a certain level. And when they get challenged, it can get really difficult. So,
do you mind stating what that belief was?
I think just some of it is, you know, really believing that I had something important to give to the world, and that I could give it, that I was able to give it, and that people would actually want it. And there's a part of me that was holding on to this idea that everything that I created was really just mainly for me, for my own growth, for my own happiness, for my own joy. And yet, in order to achieve the success that I wanted to in the world, I had to come to believe that this gift was also for others. And just so much of me just didn't want to let it go, to sort of give it over. You know what I'm saying? So there was like a struggle inside of myself, because as long as I could keep it just for me and protect it, then I wouldn't get hurt.
Exactly. Exactly. And what you're describing, I have found quite common in folks who have a fear of success. A lot of people, they say, I feel failure, so I'm not going to try. And while that can be true for some people, there are a lot of people who actually have a fear of success.
I know.
Because once you have that success, whatever it might be, doesn't have to be media success, just success in general, then it allows for exposure. It allows for you to be out in the wide open, which then can allow in judgment and ridicule. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. You know, they say, I want these things, but these things require a sense of individuality, a sense of courage, a sense of taking a risk and doing something different, which can then lead people to judge you and ridicule you.
Right.
But ultimately, as I'm sure you have discovered, it doesn't matter. I mean, people are going to judge, and that judgment doesn't matter in our own process, our own healing.
It's so true. One thing I will say, though, and this is something I've really given a lot of thought to, is that when you're a musician and a singer and songwriter and you're putting your music out into the world, what people think matters. Okay? Because if they don't like it,
they're not going to buy it?
They're not even going to listen to it, you know, let alone buy it. I mean, buying it is, who cares? But if I'm not able to touch people with my art and what I do, and there's no point in putting it out there. I might as well just have it for myself. So I think in other things it doesn't really matter, like you say, in when you're doing what you love, you just sort of go along your path and you nurture it and you grow it, and what everybody says isn't really necessarily important. But in this case, it is important what people think. So it's something that you have to learn how to come to terms with, because you can't not do it because you're getting ridiculed. You have to still keep on keeping on. But then at the same time, you've got to be mindful that there has to be a certain quality of it and a certain level that it has to reach if you really want to be successful.
I agree with that, and I agree that when you're putting quality into work and you're wanting to create a quality product, whatever that product might be, that comes, to me, in my opinion, that comes from a place of integrity. Wanting that quality to be there as a sense of integrity, rather than, being in fear. What are people going to think? Are people going to judge me? Am I going to be ridiculed? It is true that if music doesn't have a quality to it, people aren't going to want to listen. They're not going to want to purchase it. They're not going to want to come to a concert. And that element is very true. And on the other hand, I think that's what you were meaning, a person can come along and say, oh, that's horrible. But that doesn't determine or define who you are as a person.
Right.
It doesn't define who you are as a human being and what you're worth. And I think that's where sometimes people get caught up, that other people's judgment or ridicule will define them as a human being. And that's where I say, no, it doesn't.
Yes, that's very true. And that's something that I've thought about over the years as I've done my own work, that this is what I do, but it isn't me.
Right.
It's not who I am. It's just what I do. It's part of me. But yes, and no matter what it is on the external, you cannot allow it to define you. I remember I wrote a song. I was working with a kids group about 10 years ago, and they were all from underprivileged families, and they wanted to sing, and I was helping them get some songs together and go out and do shows. And I wrote a song called I Am the Light, and basically it's how, you're the light of the world, the salt of the earth, and that everything out here doesn't determine that. It just is what it is. That's who you are, the light of the world. So, yeah, but to understand that on an intellectual level is one thing, but to really embody that truth is a whole other.
It takes a lot of work. It does. It takes work. Now, sometimes people find that they want to create a change. They want to heal some unconscious beliefs. They want to move forward. And then they discover that there are people in their lives who don't want that, who don't want the person to change or to move on, or the this person in your life might have an agenda for you. Sometimes that happens with parents and children. Sometimes it happens with partners, friends. Did you have in your life people who, during your 20 years of struggle and trying to heal, was there anyone in your life who you felt kind of trying to pull you back in that opposite direction?
Oh, yes, for sure. The only thing is with me, I guess I'm kind of fortunate because I'm real scrappy and I can always see people doing, like I see the agenda and then it just sort of motivates me to go in the opposite direction of what they're trying to do. But I think they're always going to be there, and I'm actually grateful for those type of people because in my case, they actually, they sort of make me, mad enough to where I'm like, I'll show you kind of thing. So I'm not one to succumb to that. And hearing about my background, I guess you can kind of tell that it doesn't really matter how much naysaying I go up against. I'm just so headstrong about where I'm going that it's not going to really throw me off.
And a lot of times that's exactly what's needed, is to have that strength and that courage to say no. Exactly. Now, what are some of the musical accomplishments that you are proud of that you would like to share with us?
Well, the first song that really sort of got me some momentum was a song called Solace in the Wind, and my husband wrote it, and it was on my 2007 national release, Breaking Through. And I had so much great response to that. And I had it on charts. It was on the European Country Music Association chart. It went to #1 in 3 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, and they even, in Europe, they made a line dance to the song, which was really funny because it's a folk song, and it has a good beat to it, but you wouldn't think about it being a song that you could make a line dance to, but they did, so it was getting played in all the clubs, and that was the one song that I had on the Grammy ballot. So that got me going, and it was exciting to have a song like that pretty much, it doesn't matter what genre people like, they just like that song. It's sort of got that real timeless quality that crosses the genres and the generations. But I've had a lot of songs on charts over the last few years, and especially in Europe. But what happened most recently was so exciting. There was a song that I released in 2008 called Christmas Without You. And my friend Lawton Giles and his partner Buster Beam, they used to write for Patsy Cline, and they wrote several songs for her. And about a year or so before she died, she had come to them and asked them to write her a Christmas song. And they wrote this song called Christmas Without You, and she loved it. And she said she really wanted to give her fans a Christmas song. And then she took it to her label, and they liked the song, but they didn't like the Christmas words. So they asked Lawton and Buster to change the words, and the song became How Can I Face Tomorrow? So Patsy recorded it, and they released it, and it just didn't do anything on the charts. And I guess Lawton tells me Patsy was so disappointed about it. Well, then all these years later, I was sitting with Lawton one day in his office, and I said, hey, do you have any Christmas songs? I'm working on an album. And then he starts telling me about this song, and I said, I don't even need to hear it. I'm like, I'd love to record it. And he said, oh, yeah, that'd be great if you could do it the way it was originally written. So I did, and every year since 2008, I've been working it at Christmas time, and it's gotten more and more momentum, and it was on the European Country Music Association chart, and it went to #1 in a couple countries over there. And so this last year, there was 2 major online publications. One is called Autostraddle, and the other one is Truckers News, and both of them named it among their top 2015 Christmas songs that were done by country stars. And I mean, it was amazing because they had all these famous people on the list: Dolly Parton, Carrie Underwood, you name it, and then me.
Wow. On
these lists. So I was so excited about that because there was no other independent artist on these lists. And just about, as I was coming down off of that high, I find out that Sweden's largest daily newspaper which is kind of equivalent to like our New York Times or something. They wind up naming Christmas Without You one of the top 25 Christmas songs of all time.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was on the list with Otis Redding, Merle Haggard, Mariah Carey, and all these global superstars. So, I mean, that was just huge.
That's amazing. I love that story. Now, what is the takeaway message you would like to leave with the listeners today?
I think you have to stay focused on what you want in life, regardless of what's going on around you. I always tell people that somewhere deep inside them, even if they think they don't know what they want, we really come to this planet knowing what we want. Mm-hmm. A lot of things shroud that over time and our disappointments and our beliefs, but I think it's there for all of us. And if you don't know what you want, to work really hard at uncovering what your true authentic path is, because if you don't find that, you're never ever going to feel happy or fulfilled. But then once you do find it, don't waver from it, and just ask God or the universe or whatever to open up your world there. And it's amazing how that prayer will be answered, and all of a sudden, like I was saying earlier, things just start to happen and unfold in miraculous ways. But the one thing that Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich was something called definitiveness of purpose. And he said, you know, if you are not definite within yourself what your purpose is and what you desire, it's not going to come to you. Mm-hmm. So I hope people take that away if they're just starting out, especially on a journey of self-discovery and awareness, and realize they need to get to that point.
Beautiful. I agree completely. And what is your website where people can find your music and more information on you?
It's www.luannehunt.com. And my name is LuanneHunt.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Luanne, for being a guest on my show this week.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, listeners, for joining me here as well on Journey for Truth on Spreaker.com and on YouTube. Until next time, have a fantastic week.